As ASEAN launches new initiatives like the SME Caucus, a platform for members to share ideas and align policies, attention is now on how these efforts can help smaller businesses compete, innovate and grow across the region. Joining me now is the President of SAMENTA, Datuk William Ng. Datuk, thanks for doing this. Now, let's start with the newly launched ASEAN SME Caucus. How do you see this initiative changing the landscape for regional SME collaboration?
Thank you for having me. The idea for the ASEAN SME Caucus actually came about at the recent ASEAN MSME Advisory Board meeting. I think this was about 1 month after Prime Minister Datuk Rahim spoke about how intra-ASEAN trade, that means trade among ASEAN countries, has hovered at about 20% for a very long time. I think those of us who represented the private sectors, i.e. the MSMEs across all 10 ASEAN members, then decided that we needed to work together to really raise that trade and connectivity at SME level. And hence, the ASEAN SME Caucus was formed. We had the leading chambers of commerce and associations representing SMEs from all 10 ASEAN member states, essentially our counterpart from all the member states, come to Kuala Lumpur last week when we had the ASEAN SME Forum and SME Venture at ASEAN, and we kicked off the ASEAN SME Caucus last week. So I felt that was a major achievement under Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN. So of course, Malaysia is represented by SAMENTA. I feel the ASEAN SME Caucus is very crucial, very important, because I think for the very first time, our SMEs are now shaping regional collaboration. So in the past, we were waiting for the government to sign agreements, to lead, and essentially to show us where the progress are. I think today we're shifting from that traditional approach of removing barriers of trade to now actively building bridges among ourselves. Through these B2B connections that we have, through shared supply chains that we will build, and of course, through various means to do joint innovation among SMEs.
Right. Datuk, how does this caucus align with Malaysia's efforts to support SME development and also strengthen their role within ASEAN supply chains?
I think if you take the IMK 13 or 13 Malaysian plan as the point of reference, Malaysia has been very clear in our ambition to really strengthen our industrial supply chain and at the same time to accelerate our SME upscaling, from micro to small to medium and so on, and expand, of course, our market access so that I think we don't then need to rely solely on our traditional trade partners to expand it beyond Japan, beyond Singapore, and beyond US and China, for example. So I think the ASEAN SME Caucus has two immediate priorities. First, we want to increase intra-ASEAN trade to about 25% of our total trade. Bearing in mind, I said this now, we are now at about 20%, hopefully over the next decade. I think what this means is that we need to create more business-to-business ties on the ground. Secondly, I think we will be looking at sectors and industries where we can create an ASEAN supply chain. One example is that in food manufacturing, it is very clear that in some markets like Malaysia, Thailand, we have very strong F&B brands. But the cost of manufacturing these products, as well as the availability of labor, availability of raw resources, raw materials, and so on, could be in, say, another ASEAN market, say Vietnam or Indonesia. And then the financing could come from Singapore. So I think instead of competing with one another, the idea really is to how to use this ASEAN SME Caucus to create this ASEAN-wide supply chain that will benefit everybody. I think this will really benefit our SMEs because it gives a platform to partner with ASEAN. It will make it easier for us to export, easier for us to co-manufacture, and of course, to innovate. And if you're talking about transitioning from the Made in Malaysia concept to one that is made by Malaysia, it also means that Malaysia can remain a hub for product manufacturing, but at the same time, we should also transition into being IP owners, driven by innovation, and so on and so forth. So essentially, I think ASEAN SME Caucus fits nicely into our national priorities, and we are quite happy that we have the full support of the Malaysian government, especially for SCOP, to build this very important link.
Right, you spoke about intra-ASEAN trade. Now, amid global trade uncertainties, SMEs are also encouraged to seize opportunities under regional trade pacts, such as the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or the RCEP. Are local SMEs really making the most of these frameworks? And if they are not, what's still holding them back?
I think, first of all, ASEAN, the intention is to bring together all 10 ASEAN member states. And of course, we have China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. What that would mean is that Malaysia companies now have preferential access to about 2.3 billion people and about one-third of the global GDP. Many of our SMEs who are, of course, exporting or buying their raw materials or import goods from these markets are already aware of the ASEAN benefits, so they are fully aware. But unfortunately, the incremental pickup are not as great as we had hoped. So we had hoped that more SMEs will benefit, but we don't see that happening yet. I think the main challenge really is the knowledge of rules of origin among our SMEs, and perhaps I think the difficulty in measuring and declaring the regional content to qualify for preferential rates under ASEAN. It may sound simple if you're an exporter, but in reality, it's a lot complicated, especially with SMEs who may lack the documentation. They lack the clarity of the origin of the raw materials and semi-finished goods within their finished products, so that they can declare truthfully when they're exporting. So if you cannot document and prove this, it'll be very hard to benefit from the reduced or zero tariff under ASEAN. So at the same time, ASEAN being a regional trade agreement, there are stricter compliance, there's stricter documentation for customs. So like it or not, I think there's a learning curve. And of course, we hope in time this will resolve itself. And we must also remember that besides this tariff reduction or elimination that the agreement of ASEAN plan to do, some more mature markets, let's say Japan, for example, just because you have ASEAN doesn't mean that Japan will suddenly not open up just like that for our SMEs. We still have to fulfill their very high standards of safety, the quality standards. We still have to get the right partner and distributor in say, Japan in this case. We still have to factor in the new logistics and the complication within their domestic market. So I think to some extent, these challenges negate tariff savings brought about by ASEAN. So I think moving forward, besides education, we really need to do a lot more focused trade mission and business matching so that our SMEs are better able to benefit from this aspect.
Right, Dato'. Let's talk about digitalization and also innovation. Now, these are passports to global markets today. In your view, what does digital readiness look like for SMEs, both locally and across the region, and how critical is it for them to adapt very, very quickly to stay relevant?
I think for a typical SME, digital readiness could mean three things. Number one, the simplest one is really how to manage the sales, of payments, or logistics across borders. Be it our neighbor in Singapore or as far as US, to manage that seamlessly through digitalization. Secondly, how do we use the data and also the improved efficiency to improve our productivity as a company? And I think eventually the idea is then how do we get integrated, despite us being physical manufacturer and so on, how do we integrate this into a digital supply chain? I think this is critical because increasingly global buyers from Europe and so on, they require end-to-end digital traceability. So it's no longer paperwork like what I mentioned earlier. You get a form, you pass it to customs. Now people want to know where the products come from, and all these things are driven by digital. So I think some people are saying that digital readiness is more important if you are in the, say, IT or digital business or e-commerce business, and not so important for traditional sector. Say, for example, you're a barber, you cut hair. So you really need digital. But if you really think about it, my generation, right, when we want to cut our hair, we tend to go to nearby barbers, wherever is near our house. But today, people discover and search for barber online. Before they even go, they go to your reviews, see if you're any good. They see whether you're open, they see whether they are parking nearby the shop and so on. So I think even as a barber, a very traditional business, you will need some form of digital presence. I think before COVID, digital is perhaps optional, but I think today, no matter what business you do need to be digitally ready.
Right. Datuk, let's talk a little bit about sustainability very quickly. Are Malaysian and also regional SMEs ready to integrate greener business practices, and what might help them accelerate that shift?
I think to keep it really short, more and more SMEs are aware of ESG and are going on board the sustainability journey. But I think more can be done. For us to do so, we need to provide more incentives for green transition. We already have some of that under IMK 13 and as well as the recent budget 2026. But we also need some kind of commitment and understanding from larger companies that the kind of disclosure standard they expect from SMEs must not be the same level as their own. I think right now, they're going around expecting SMEs to report at the same report standards level as they are. And this is very difficult for SMEs to fully comply. I think if you don't do that, I think while many SMEs are already aware of the benefits, many will end up avoiding some of these business or supply chain to require reporting if the reporting standard is too high for them to reach.
Right, Datuk, finally, as ASEAN leaders meet this weekend, what would you like to see discussed or prioritized as the 47th ASEAN Summit to strengthen the regional SME ecosystem moving forward?
I think there are a few things that we want to see. One, I think there's must be stronger focus on SME to SME connectivity. So far, we have seen a lot of talks about how between governments, we need to have more cultural exchanges, we need to have strengthen our economic connectivity. But I think there's not enough drilling down to the ground and see how we can enable SME and SME to connect better. Recently, there are mention of the creation of ASEAN business entity. In fact, this was announced that Malaysia will support that in the budget 2026. But again, this ASEAN business entity that has been mooted for now excluded the SMEs. They are meant for listed and larger companies to allow them to trade as to hire people and so on across the region a lot more easier. Now, do we exclude the SMEs? So our hope is that this upcoming meeting that among the leaders, there are a lot more focus to say, look, if we cannot create some form of equivalence of the ASEAN business entity for the SMEs, perhaps like an ASEAN SME passport, if we cannot do it now, then there should be some form of timeline to enable SMEs to be able to move around ASEAN a lot easier so that then you really increase the trade and connectivity among ASEAN. And if you have time, I would want to suggest one more thing for this upcoming ASEAN meeting, and it's really looking at how we can change our current focus on domestic KPI among our individual countries. Say, for example, Malaysia is very much on export numbers. What is the number this year? What kind of FDIs we are bringing in? What is the proportion of the export numbers are from SMEs and so on and so forth? We need to transition from that or add on to that to say that we must have KPIs to reflect intra-ASEAN trade, intra-ASEAN cooperation. What percentage of SMEs are now trading in other countries? What kind of rules that we have reduced among ASEAN? I think we need to add that on as well.
All right, sure. Thank you so much, Datuk William Ng, President of SAMENTA. Now, insights like these remind us that the real strength of ASEAN lies not only in its policies, but in the collective drive of its entrepreneurs and small businesses to adapt and thrive together. Datuk, thank you once again for your time. That's all the time we have for now. Don't forget to visit BERNAMA.com and follow us on our social media channels, YouTube, X, Instagram and Facebook for the latest news. Stay with BERNAMA TV, or you can also visit BERNAMA.com for the latest on the 47th ASEAN Summit. This has been The World on BERNAMA TV. I'm Pasha Rahim. Have yourself a fantastic weekend ahead.